Let us have a small look at how we can learn more about these command lines tools from the command line actually. So we used now this bow tie software, and this is the line that starts the whole software, right? We use the obtainer container, unpack it, and then we have the command bow tie 2 to run this software. So let me just copy this command line here, only this part of it, and go to the terminal window. And now I have to make sure I'm in the same folder where I have this obtainer container. Yeah, here it is. So if I right click and paste in the command line here now, this should now work, right? Because this container here is in this folder. How do you get help for using a command line tool? Well, very often you can just type the starting command without any input. Let's try to do that. Just return here now and see what happens. Yeah, this is what very often happens, that if you type no further input to the software, you are automatically given the help file or the help text for that software. That's what you see scrolling over the screen here now. Or we can we can very often just type -h, which is an option for getting help. Almost all software, command line software, will have an option called -h for help, and that will give exactly the same result. You are given this help text. Let's scroll to the top of it now and see what it says and how this can help us. First, usually there's some word about the version and blah blah blah, but that's also visible to us here, right, in the container name. And then you should look for this usage. That should be the first thing that is specified. I have to say this varies a little bit between softwares because this is up to the maker of the software, right? But there are some sort of conventions that most people use. So in general, there will be a usage section here. And then you can see an example of a command line here. How should this software be used? Well, first of all, you start it by using the command bow tie 2. Okay, we knew that already. Then there is some square brackets here. And inside it says options. And these are the optional input. And here down here you can see the options, right? Listed. So it means that after bow tie 2 you can now list, if you like, because of the square brackets, this is optional, some options here. And there are lots of options to this software. If you scroll down here, you will find many of them. There's so many that they are divided into sort of sections here. So I will not go through that here now, but you can do that in peace and quiet on your own if you like. And let's try to focus on this usage line here now. So, okay, after bow tie, we can have options, and we can have as few and as many as we like, because these are optional. And for details about what they mean and so on, look down this file here. Then we have this part here. This is not optional because it's no brackets here. -x. And then some input here. And what is this? It's explained down here. This is the index. This is the index prefix. And if we go back to our own command line, if I jump back to RStudio here now, if we go back to our command line, we see that, okay, we used one option here, threads. You will find it if you scroll down the help text. And then we use the index, the second input here. So that's something you have to supply. You cannot run bowtie without an index. Then you have these curly braces here. And what is this? It means that this is also sort of required, but here you have a choice. You can either input according to this pattern, and this is what you do if you have paired end reads with an R1 and an R2 file, just like we had. And then you can see -1 and M1 is the file with the number 1 mates. That's the R1 file, right? And then -2 and M2, which is the number 2 mates here. So this is actually the way we used bowtie. If we go back to our script here, you can see we follow this pattern here. That's the third sort of input. But this is not the only way we can give the input. We have this vertical bar, which means or. You can do either this or you can do like this, and that's unpaired reads. If you have single reads, right? Either because you have that from the start, you can have single sequencing, right? Single read sequencing. Or because you have made some filtering and you're left with some unpaired reads. Anyway, they can be given like this. And R is then simply the file with the unpaired reads. Or there is a third way of specifying interleaved. What's that? That's also paired end reads, but instead of having them in two separate files, they are mixed in the same file with a forward and reverse read, or R1, R2 read on every second row. So read number 1 and 2 is a pair, 3 and 4 is a pair, 5 and 6 is a pair, and so on. This format is not so common anymore, but it's still in here because some sequencing platforms still did output this. I don't think anyone is doing that anymore, but some old files can still be used here then. Or you can have the input as a BAM file. Yeah, that's actually just a compressed SAM file. So you can actually take the result from another read mapping and use as input to this read mapping. Okay, but we usually and very often stick to this first one here because bowtie is a tool we use for Illumina data, and in most cases Illumina data comes with an R1, R2 file. But that's the input. That's the third sort of section here. And then finally the output. But it's also in brackets. So you don't really have to specify an output. And that's possible, but then the output will go to what we call standard out, which is the screen in most cases. So it will just flash over the screen. Or you can use this redirect to put it into a file. But we choose to use this way of specifying the output minus capital S and a name of a file, which will then be a SAM formatted file. So you can see we used options, index, input reads, output here in our command line. So we followed this pattern of usage exactly, and that is something I really strongly recommend you to do. Whenever you use a new software, look up the usage section and try to give the input in this particular order. Some softwares are pretty finicky on this. Others are more liberal, so you can mix the ordering. But to be safe, follow the recipe from this part here. And then you look down here to see what are my possible options. Is there something here I would like to use? We haven't, as you can see, we have not used very many options. There are a lot of things we could have done here that we did not do. So that's for sure. So, and here you can see the threads option. You can either have a single -p or double minus threads. Quite often you will find software having this too. Up here you can see also with time either single minus t or double minus time. So you have sort of a short way and a long way of specifying the option. I must say I always prefer to use the long version because it's so much easier to understand what is going on, right? When the option is called threads, you know what to put back here, the number of threads, right? But if it's not just minus p, who would guess that this has something to do with threads? Yeah, but this you can decide yourself. Let's look at, we had another use of bow tie here. Let me comment in again this code. Another command called bow tie to build. Let's look at the help file for this one then. Copy and see if it's possible to learn something more about this software here. And we do the same. Without any input, we will be given the help text. And again, you find the usage section here. Bow tie build, then the options, then the reference, and then the index base. Okay. And notice reference in can now be, and here you have this type of, notice this, what do you call this, smaller than, larger than arrows, sort of. That's just indicates replace whatever is in here with something meaningful. So only the options are optional here. You have to have a reference and you have to have an index name. But notice that the reference could be more than one single file. Can you see that? Because in our case, it was a single file. Because we specified up here, yeah, this is the contigs file, right? That we use as a reference here. We have one option here. Let me put in this backslashes to make this obvious. No, so that should be on the same line, right? This is the option. Here we should break the line. Then we have the input, which is what we should make the index from. And then we have the input telling us what to name the index and where to put it. This is how we should split the command line to make it sort of readable and nice. You can, of course, split it the way you like, but if you split in here, it doesn't make sense, right? Because this option needs some number. This must be a number. And we gave it up here, 10. Okay, so we followed this pattern and everything seems to be fine. And we know it's fine because it worked. But you can see there are some other options you could have used here. And we didn't. So now you know how to read at least basic help text from this command line. How do you know from the beginning to use this bow tie build? Well, I think that what I would do if I was going to look up a software, I would just Google for it and I would write bow tie to GitHub and go to the GitHub site. Almost all softwares have a GitHub site. And also you can see at the top of the module documents, I list the softwares and a link to the GitHub site. Not 100% all of them have GitHub sites, but most. And if you scroll down on the front page of the GitHub site, there's usually a lot of listing of files, but that's something we just have to scroll past. And then comes a section here with some guides on how to run this software, right? And here you can see there is some links you could possibly follow, or there is some sort of basic examples here. For instance, here example bow tie. Here you can see immediately how to do read mapping, right? Aligning unpaired reads, aligning paired reads. Bow tie to, and then the index, and then -1, -2. So there are some examples already here and how to build the index. You just need to be able to understand that you replace this one with your reference file and this one with your index name, right? So at least you find out which commands to use, and then you can go back to your terminal window, run these commands and get the more detailed help text. Or you can find some links here to some manual, which is usually the same more or less as the help text. But the point is, my big point here is that you need to be able to manage on your own here. Because in bioinformatics, we use a lot of different software tools, and new software tools appear all the time. And I talk about these command line software tools now. That's what we are doing more or less all the time. You need to be able to learn to use new software all the time in this field here. So make sure you can manage to find help on your own and read it. Of course, you can use the AI and ask an AI, and they will usually just sort of give you this. I think I prefer to look here first because I only ask AI if there is something I cannot find out on my own quickly. And this is really quick. And I mean, once you have started to get used to look into this help text, you will find your way very quickly. So try to be able to manage on your own. That's the big goal here.